When you're doing these, another thing, and I don't know, we haven't really talked about this, but I think it's fine. You might kind of go over here to the brushes here. It might be something that's interesting from a sort of organic perspective. Does that make sense? Not that organic. Does that
Oh,
make
yeah,
sense?
to give it some texture or something too?
Well, it might not need that at all, but I just want you to know very simply where your tools are, where some of your brush tools are. I'm going to get more into this later. But if you open up your brush palette, you can go right here to this flyout menu and go open brush library, and there's artistic. Like I use this a lot for texture, this one right here. And I wouldn't use it for this, but I use this all the time for textures and things like that. And I can dial it in up here with my stroke weight. It's just stuff to play with a little bit. This one's kind of interesting. And I don't know, let's see. I don't know if these will work with, oh, they do. These work with the lift tool, which I didn't know. So you can adjust those too. And if I'm going to make, there's a lot of ways to make this shape. I'm just going to make it simple. I'm going to hold Option. We have to color this thing. Get rid of this line. I find it. And I can create a leaf shape pretty easily. That make sense?
Yeah, and you can just clone it into like the kelp.
Yeah, because I could then go, here's my kelp. Let's flip this. It's the wrong green, but it's fine. I'm going to go, I think I'm just going to go, I'm going to actually go a little bit thicker with this. Go up here. Now you probably might come in here. That's probably a little too thick, but that's okay. Also, I'm going to try something here. Come on. Could apply them like that to get a little more organic looking. Maybe take this one. Do the same thing with the puppet warp tool. Maybe put it in a different position. And I could start building a little kelp forest. That makes sense? Oops.
Yes, and is that with the mesh that you're adjusting it?
The puppet warp tool, the little, whatever you call it, the little thumbtack. So when I create this, I only talked about this briefly, but when I grab something, a shape, and I have these grouped, I can go here and it gives me this mesh, and I can add a mesh if I want. I can move them around a little bit.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And I need to add, like if I go to this one, then I could maybe go, I'm going to pull it more like that. And it'll just give me a quick way to sort of change these a little bit. Put another thing here. pivot sort of around, so I could create a little bit of, I wouldn't do them this disparate. I'd make sure they felt like they were in the current or something. But what I'm saying is just changing them up. Does that make sense? And I'd probably only change up a couple of them. Like this one, I might, depending on, I'd want it to all look like it's in a current, but I could just flip this one too. And now I got another shade. This one I could go a little bigger, whatever, right? And I'd want it to look like kelp. Mine doesn't look like kelp yet, but I'd have to go look at exactly what it looks like. Does that make sense? Let's go here. Let's grab this and go boom. So there's that. But what he's doing to create this sort of overall back part. Now, usually he hand paints these, but I don't know if he still is doing all that or if he has assistants at this point. I'm not sure. Some of the stuff really looks like illustrated. And I'm going to go grab this color because this is sort of his hedge color. Go back to my Unite. So it's all one shape now. And I could probably just come in here. Oops. And grab my square. And that's that starting point. You see that?
So that's the process. Get the big thing mapped out, almost like the midground, and then he does not the decoration. I don't know the right word for it, but all the different plant textures on top.
Yeah.
And then he's got that central image, and then the little voodoo type tiki statues.
Yeah, and these are sort of the same shape language building like we did with the Conan thing. All this stuff is basically. Look at this interpretation. Some of this stuff to me totally looks like he's using Illustrator now. I don't know though. I haven't been able to find any info on it, but he used to hand paint all these. And they look different, by the way. They look. Oh no, actually, it looks like he did. He might have painted. I'm not sure. But like, if you look at this texture right here, see that texture?
Is that kind of the thing you just showed us?
Yeah, kind of. If I come in here and I go, and I'll get way more into this later, but let's go in here and just go grab this color. And I'm going to go, just like I said, let's try it with this. Go back to our brushes. Let's try this one. Oops. So I can get some of that organic texture here. I'm going to pull this out so it doesn't look like it's repeating. Maybe drag it over here a little bit. Maybe go a little fatter on this one. Make sure this is in front. And now I can start to get some of that texture back there. That makes sense?
Yeah, I really like this. It's a completely different way of thinking. So I'm trying to absorb that, but I can see how it works better,
And if you look here, like I don't know if it's hard, but like figuring out how you want to do these things. Because I really want you to think like a designer for this stuff. I think it's really important. I think it's really important all the time, but you can see it just works really well. If I want to do something like what he just did, then I could just make let me get a different color so I can see it. Whatever this cutout shape is now, in order for this to work, I got to go back up and make it one shape, which is our compound path. And I'm just going to take this, go back to my, whatever you call it, my Pathfinder. Look at that. Right? That's good. And cut that out. Then I get something like what he's doing there. Right?
Yes, I see it.
You know, just fun interpretation of shapes, you know. I mean, these shapes, and this whole thing, if I did this in Illustrator, I mean, other than figuring out the design of it, I mean, it wouldn't take me very long at all. You know. But you know, you can get a little bit of texture in there too if you want. We're going to do a texture project later, but right now I don't want to. But I just want to show you real simple tools for that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
So interpretation. You know, one thing I think is important, I think, with this, with an arrow. It's lagging. It's going to use whatever color. And there's a bunch of ways, we'll get into more ways of making shapes and all that later. You know, sort of getting this, and by the way, like I just made 2 lines, so I'm going to loop down over, I'm going to go Command J. Actually, another thing I could do here, let's try this. I'm going to pull a, I'm going to go Command R for our rulers, or Control and window, right there. So I'm right on the center. And then I'm going to take this. Let's see if we can go. You want to do this with the black arrow too. You want to select the whole thing.
Mhm.
My mirror, go right there. Option, drag. You know, and I can make more of an arrow shape, whatever that is. See, it's giving me that weird thing. Let me get rid of this. There we go. You know, so I get a real definite arrow shape. You know, something stylistically. By the way, I can also still come in here now and go, well, it's too shallow to me. I might go and loop over this little point and just go with my arrows. You know, I could adjust that with my white arrow tool. You know. There's also you know, the other part, look, I could do this. I could go to, I don't know if you guys remember this, our lives right here shear tool right there. And look, it has that little anchor point, which I'm going to put right there. And then I'm just going to grab this side, hold shift. Probably make it a little shorter. So I'm going to grab my white arrow tool. Then option, hold shift, and then duplicate. Grab all of them. Put an anchor point right. I always put it right on one of those, one of the anchors, and then just flip it. And now I get that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But you got to kind of figure out how am I going to do that and have it feel like a forest.
Yeah.
But you just got to have enough, whatever you call it. Number one doesn't. Maybe, you know, maybe it's closer this way. I don't know, the feathers, or what do they call that? You know, and I could get more complex with the feather shape. I'd probably look at it and find a cooler shape. But, you know, how am I going to do that? How am I going to make it feel like a forest and still be cool and stylized and all that?
Mm-hmm.
This is too wide down at the bottom for me. It probably needs to come up more like that. Then I would just have to flip it again. then I got figured out. Okay. And then obviously this part would be pretty easy. Is this, look, here's another little trick. And I get these where they went down in the right increments. But let's go red. Let's go. God, I hate when it does that. Every time. I don't understand why it constantly loses your swatch library. It's irritating. Swatch library, default, print. What I need to do is make sure that I reset my workspace so that pops up every time that I use it. So let's just go. Let's just do red. Oops. See, it's always on the wrong thing. It's always on line when you want to be on fill. Let's go. Yeah. And let's go. Let's just do white. And let's just do red. Now, if I grab all these, if you look up right here, a line, or it can be right here, a line in your palettes. So I'm going to go a line to drop those tools down. And look, this is how they'll line up. So let's line them up this way. Okay.
Okay.
Does that. And then let's line them up this way. And it just put them all together itself and gives me my, looks like a Target logo. Gives me my my target. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So those align tools, if you look at it, they're pretty self-explanatory. This lines them up in the middle, this lines them up to one side, this lines them up the other side, this lines them up to the top, this lines them across horizontally, this lines them to the bottom. And then you have a distribute step, we'll get into that later. But the line tools are just another thing to get things lined up for you. Make sense?
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna half-ass this. Connect these two. Command J. I'm gonna close this shape. I would never have such a pointy edge like that. I don't like that. But you could do this, and then you could kind of just, what happens is you get a shadow value under here. And that'll sort of imply this lip here. Does that make sense?
Yes. I'm gonna I know the drawings all like lines, but I did it in Illustrator and I was trying to like do the shapes, and every time that I did it, it kept coming out pointy, like when I was drawing with the pen tool for some reason.
Yeah. By the way, there's this, it doesn't work on every single thing. Let's see if it'll, yeah. Well, so let's look at this. There's a very simple thing here. If you notice, when you make a certain shapes, see how it has these little dots? Yeah?
Yeah.
You can grab this and soften edges. Okay? Now it doesn't work with every shape. Let's see if it'll give us one here, and I don't think it will. See, on things like this, it doesn't, just because it's like, well, I don't know what to do with that. So with something like this, when I'm building the shape, so if you're going in and doing your drawing, you're jumping into Illustrator too fast. You need to sort of like kind of work that stuff out before you go into Illustrator. Does that make sense? Because especially when you're new to Illustrator, you're going to end up with a lot of points, and points, sharp points like that, they can be off-putting the shapes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was like, oh, it was a little pointy, but I mean, I was trying to get it clear.
So what I do is when I'm building these kind of things, like let's say I go right here and I go to my scissors tool and I cut this. Now I would build it when I'm making it, but sometimes I'll see something and I'll go, oh, I'm gonna go back to my white arrow tool. Grab just this, delete it, then come back in here, grab it again, come down here. Oops. And I can just curve that around a little bit and soften that edge. That's sloppy, but you get the point, right?
Yeah.
You know, and then this, you know, I can put a shape down here. If I want, I could put make sure it's behind. So let's grab this one and make sure it's in front. Arrange, bring to front. Now I'm just gonna you know, I could do that kind of thing too, right?
Yeah.
And then if I wanted to lock this off, you know, maybe I'm part of this thing. Actually, this should come down like this. So let's go. This probably won't work. I would have built this in. Make it the original shape. Let's give me trouble. And get that little divot in the lip. You know what I mean? And I'd have that smooth into there a little better. I wouldn't do it this way, but just to give you a, you know, just to build complexity of shape in there. We want to keep it simple, but there's little things you can do that are just kind of nice to do. See, that's too hard edge right there. So it needs to go. I don't know if this will work. Let's forget what it says. Where is my smoothing? Smoothing tools. It should be in there with that. Oh, usually it's right here. I'm gonna activate that. Yeah. This should smooth into that better. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sloppy, but you get the point. You know, and just got to remember that this top lip is a down facing plane, so it's going to be darker in most lightings from above. This is an up facing plane, it's going to be a little lighter. So I'm going, this is dark, this is up facing forward, catching light if I don't put anything there. But then this is jutting out and cast a dark shadow right here. But if I put both the lips, I don't really need the dark cast shadow under there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I want these all to feel like completed design ideas. So you might go, let's see. Actually, let's see. I'm going to go here so I can put it, I'm going to put rotate so I can put the anchor point there. Now, let's try some. I'm gonna lock that. Unlock it for a second. Okay, that's on snap to grid, which drives me crazy. I don't want smart guides right now. Snap to point, I don't want that. Okay. Now I can sort of just move it around. What I really want to do here is I want to go, is there a way that I can? I'm doing this crudely, but and quickly, but I want to get those little facets in there. That's good. And I fix that little point right there. I'm not going to do it. And then I'm going to go. Oops. I'm going to pull this over to that point right there. Unlock it. Yeah. Unlock for a second. Oh, wait a minute. Just missed something here. So I'm going to pull it over here again. I'm going to use that top one. I'm going to move that to the front. I didn't cut this out right. And I'm going to go back to here. I usually do this all in one fell swoop. Do that. Now it's sloppy over there. I fix that little point right there. And then I do the same thing over here, leave the red, and then this side would be, you know, if the sun's over here, maybe this gets a little darker. You know, maybe I come in here. Sometimes I like to put a little bit of this in there, just as a silhouette. That's too thick.
You know, thing I was going to mention, when you use line isn't as maneuverable as shape. Whereas with shape, you could actually indicate a cutting point and make the upper part shaded, and the lower part would be in the light.
Well, both of them have their advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah.
You just want to be adept at both. I use both. For me, it's always just about what I'm trying to accomplish, basically.
Yeah.
And then what I do a lot is I go, let's try this. I want to make this now. I got a whatever you call it, a line. I'm going to go here to object. We talked about this path. I'm going to go outline stroke. I'm going to make this. What I am always trying to do is just reduce these things down, but just put enough stuff in there that it's kind of fun. Like I'm going to grab this. I should line this up correctly, but I'm not going to worry about it. Again, I'm just going to take this and pull it over here. And I'm going to go bacteria shape, get rid of this. There. Because what I like to do is put the little I like to put the little hand crank on it. Then I'd probably come down here. Maybe disconnect this. Let me see if this will work. Get my scissors, cut it right there. And take this line, fatten it up, so it's more like a handle, and just dip it over a little bit. By the way, I could also go up here to my stroke right here, and there's a rounded corner right there, so I could round that off if I wanted to. And then if I, yeah, that's not too bad. I'd line that up a little better. And by the way, if I don't like that little thing, then I could go here, take this again, object, path, outline stroke. And I could just go line up with this thing. I'm doing the sloppy, so don't be sloppy like me. I could line it up against this, which I don't have it, and then just go here, cut it off. Do that. And now, you know, we have a little more, and also this under here should get darker with it.
When you outline the stroke, does that make a shape out of it?
Yeah, it just makes a shape.
So then you can use the Pathfinder tool to trim it.
Yeah.
Very good.
So, you know, I could do things like this. Now, you know, there's a bunch of different things I could do. This now feels like it needs to go up because now it's revealing it a little bit. So this would probably go, I don't know, up there or whatever. Or this color would need to continue through it. It's underneath. And then I'd probably also put the little thing on top. Oops. Let's flip this. Again, fatten this up. And I'm going to give it a round, again, stroke and this little rounded edge. Put this behind. Arrange, send it back. So that's a little more interesting.
Yeah.
That is very cool.
All right, you guys.
Yeah.
I will see you tomorrow at 1:30.